And Rhett's going to go ahead and rehost another game. It looks like he's taking the opportunity to check out that replay. And again, Rhett is choosing Daybreak. That's like the opposite of Dual Sight.
It is in what way, Sean? How is that? how is that? Actually, yeah, I'll just ask you the question.
Let's explain. Let's explain it. Now, the thing to note about Dual Sight is that it's very close in terms of positioning. You start at the corners and you expand laterally
towards each other.
Yeah, so it's a very shallow distance between both of your base sets. It's a long distance from map side to map side, but still, the amount of aggression you can do is pretty easy. On Daybreak, on the other hand, you expand vertically at the start of the game. So there's a really wide distance between the bases. Daybreak is very macro-oriented, and so on and so forth. And Rhett just messaged me and said, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to win with Mutas. I know I'm practicing the late game. I don't know, I'm sorry. I love that.
I mean, it just seemed good, man. He was comfortable with the Mutalisk against the Robo opening, and he knew that, I mean, he was going to take advantage of it there. And I mean, obviously, if PartinG goes for something that's so strong against Roach Hydralisk, it's going to be difficult for Rhett to even try taking that step to make it into the late game. He had to try going for a different option anyway. So sometimes it happens, but Rhett did very much get out of his standard comfort zone for a little bit in that game, staying up really wonderful with his harassment. But this time, you can bet we're going to see him go heavily for that Hive Tech.
Now, something that's interesting to note is that PartinG is actually rewatching that replay. It wasn't a very long game, just 14, 15 minutes, but I think that I can speak for everyone on the entire planet Earth when I say that a lot of times when you lose, you don't want to rewatch that replay. That hurts. You just, oh, no, that jerk. I forgot about Detection 1 Dark Templar. You know, but PartinG lost. Pretty frustrating game. Didn't have momentum for much of the game.
Right.
Had Mutalisk killing him right before he had Blink. Very, 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 excellent, I would say, focus and composure to force himself to watch that replay, even in a practice environment.
Yes, but that's what it's all about, right? If there is a situation where you need to watch a replay to learn, now is it. And I mean, even like a lot of tournament settings don't even let you watch the replays in between games anyway. So this is where you want to take advantage of that knowledge and see what you can do to grow for your next practice match. You know who you're going to be playing. He's a sparring partner. You need to make these matches worth it for him too.
Yeah. Now, Rhett, again, I want to come back to that comment he made that was that made me laugh initially, where he said, "Sorry, didn't mean to kill him with Mutalisks. I'm still trying to focus on going for the Hive Tech." That's an important thing to note, that while Rhett was doing all those moves, inside his head, he was still thinking, I know I'm practicing going to Hive. Doing a longer mid-game doesn't mean that you're ignoring that Hive Tech or those Hive moments, but on a map like Dual Sight, it makes a lot of sense to try to do as much aggression as you can early on while you can, and then to transition to that late game later.
Now, thinking about it and holding that T key are two very different things. So moving into Daybreak, down here in the lower left-hand corner of the map, we have Rhett playing as the Red Zerg, and all the way across his sparring partner, currently 0-1 in this. We saw him go for a Robo opening. He's playing as the Blue Protoss. This is PartinG. Now, the question is, what is PartinG going to do this time? Does he feel comfortable enough with that Immortal opening that he'll be able to try it once again? Did watching that replay help him seal up the holes in his play that he needed to in order to allow Rhett to get to the late game? And will Rhett, on the other hand, push as hard with those Mutalisks? Will he continue adding Mutalisks to the army after he already has pretty good map control?
Now, I think that the important lesson that Rhett learned is that, on one hand, he's trying to work on his late game. On the other hand, getting to the late game is just as important. I mean, certainly, if you can get to 8 bases and know that you've won there, yeah, sure, I think most people are comfortable in that spot. But again, getting there is a really, really, really important question. And Rhett got the chance to know, hey, if you open up with a crazy Warp Prism drop harass, not only do I have a good way to defend it while it's happening, but I have a good follow-up. You open Robo, you won't have a very fast Blink. You won't have Phoenixes to deal with Mutalisks. It's intuitive to go for Mutalisk Zergling there. You're going for an immobile, immortal-focused army, and I'm going to exploit that very well.
And really, that's still a learning experience for Rhett in and of itself. And that's all that he's trying to do here, is grow his play and add yet another weapon to his already pretty massive macro arsenal.
Oh, yes, to his Dutch Zerg arsenal.
Oh, yeah.
Looks like
he's got some dangerous weapons in there.
Indeed he do. Most importantly of all, I honestly think the two biggest strengths of Liquid Ret are, one, never letting a larva touch the ground. It's almost like, you know, in those movies where they're trying to demonstrate that someone has superpowers and someone drops a tray of food and he catches all the food and just sets it on the table. That's like Ret. The larva's popping off, and before it even touches the ground, it's turned into an egg. And that allows him to almost always have that extra edge in units, about 20% more units than your average bear.
Exactly. That is a scientific number. We have measured it. As long as you use larvae before they touch the ground, it messes with the recount timer and starts producing one faster.
Well, unfortunately for me, I'm a huge nerd and studied a lot of Ret's gameplay, and it did end up being literally about 20% more units when compared to a lot of, you know, standard, you know, not the GSL Code S players, because sadly GSL does not email me all the replays from the tournament.
Oh,
but,
darn.
I mean, Ret gets a lot of units really quickly. The one thing that he's gets a little behind on is some upgrades, some other things, because he's spending all his money on the larva right when they pop up.
Right, and that makes total, there has to be a trade somewhere in there, right? If you're going to have 20% more stuff than your opponent, you cannot have the same amount of upgrades as them, or else we're going to have to investigate.
And I mean, the second big thing that Ret does really well is watch the mini-map like a hawk. Anytime there are units swinging on in, right when that warp prism just briefly grazed that vision center of that one Zergling, Ret saw it and immediately responded back home to his main. Very, very difficult to do well.
And that response was just so nice from Ret. If your opponent does something that's kind of funky, that puts him in a tough spot, like getting all of those sentries out there, as long as you stop that harassment, he's already behind. And like you said, he just transitioned so well into something that could totally abuse what PartinG gave up in exchange for that build. But PartinG is mixing it up a little bit this game and going for some air toss.
Yeah, I like this air opening style quite a lot on this map. You don't really have an opportunity to do much damage to his base because, you know, hell, look at the mini-map. That's a big distance, man. So what it does give you the benefit of is that Zerg is going to have a tremendous difficulty trying to put pressure on you. Sure, he might be able to send some roaches in your direction, but there's that huge distance where you can catch them, charge up, deal the damage. So Startail PartinG is basically very well defended once he gets a couple of Phoenixes and Void Rays up.
And now I'm wondering if we'll actually see Chef's weakness make a bit of a cameo in this game. Maybe we'll see PartinG get out there, lay on some air pressure pretty early, and go for his fast third, because we know that that in yesterday that was very much Chef's focus, and we'll get to see how Ret deals with that.
And, you know, I really love that you bring that up, because it's so important to think of these situations as not what Ret is capable of or what Chef is capable of, but what a Zerg is capable of. There's only so much any Zerg player can do. Sure, I love to bust out my 20% statistic, blah, 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 but it's just any Zerg player could do that. If they literally watched Ret play on a monitor to their left.
Now that's actually two really big pickoffs for PartinG. He just killed two really crucial overlords.
Oh yeah.
One that was on the right side of his base, and another one I think that was right below the bottom. And now he continues to push with the Void Ray out into the center of the map. And this is such a good time for PartinG to have supply capped his opponent, because Ret's just, I mean, he's droning up.
He's droning up. At the same time, though, Ret's being very responsible about trying to hold these watchtowers. Just make sure of what's coming and where it's coming from.
And PartinG continues to move across the map with that Void Ray. Now, we can see that he really wasn't going for a heavy airplay there, right? He immediately exposed that Void Ray as soon as he had a free opportunity to kill an Overlord.
Yeah, this is about as light as an air harass ever is. 1 Void Ray and 3 Phoenixes. You can be a little more aggressive and go 2 Void Ray, 4 Phoenixes, or, I mean, I've seen players sometimes go 1 Void Ray, 1 Phoenix, but that really can't even do anything.
And Ret has actually even done a very minimal response to this as well. He's actually only placed a single spore in his main, and a single spore in his third, not even placing one down at the natural. So he also wasn't very worried about a heavy air push from PartinG.
Yeah, we're seeing Ret essentially skip queens at this point in time. 1 queen did end up popping right there. Nice little pick off there by PartinG. What we're seeing Ret go for is, again, that similar ultra-fast infestation pit. He will be likely taking a 4th quite swiftly, and Ret's going to pop up here, poke at the front, freak his opponent out a little bit. Ooh, it looks like Warp Prism again being revealed. This is why those aggressive pokes are so critical.
Man, and Rhett, awesome job getting in there and getting the knowledge. He actually didn't even have to worry about map control. That time he went straight to PartinG to get the information that he needed. Now, PartinG is in a slightly different situation, though, this time, because PartinG has very mobile air units that could possibly distract the army for long enough and secure him a window of opportunity to get off that Warp Prism harass, but it seems like PartinG is actually feeling a little bit deterred.
Yeah, PartinG is going to hold back. The real efficiency of what PartinG did is this fourth hatch. Rhett would have loved to place it up here. As his infestors are popping out, he can easily pick off this Void Ray. But he saw a Warp Prism. He's going to have all his units sort of hanging back home or ready to pounce at anything that arrives. But there's really nothing arriving. And once again, PartinG, as instructed, is going to go for the late game. Except that pylon actually does block the Nexus, so I'd be a little careful of that.
You know what? Actually, it does not.
You know what? Let's go over to this part of the mini-map.
Let's look at this base over here. So, Rhett, man. So Rhett's going to be sticking with Infestors this time, and we do see him getting up there and taking that fourth. Now, even though that he was able to take it right now, delaying it for any amount of time is still a pretty large win for PartinG.
Yeah. At the same time, though, another nice lift. I mean, this air harass used to be viewed as something that was an early game moment. You had to just pick off as much as you could with this mixture, but players are more and more just getting the Void Ray up and saying, hooray, and just sort of comfortably squatting that Void Ray up at these expansions.
And now Rhett didn't go for Hydralisk this game, right? We didn't see him go for a Roach Hydralisk combination for that mid to late game transition. Instead, we saw him pretty much almost just skip Tier 2 and jump straight into, well, I mean, I guess the Infestors still count. I'm just saying, to get up to his late game composition, we didn't see him really employ Roaches or Hydralisks to get there, and that means that those air units are going to be that much more effective. And now Rhett building lots of Zerglings and pushing across the map with his Infestors as well. They don't have quite enough to fungal those. Oh, yes, they actually do, but he's going to continue moving through with the Infestors onto this third, get some valuable information. The force fields are landed down. He gets some beach balls down over there, but the infested Terrans are going to be fried as soon as they pop.
And you know, I think that Rhett is realizing a little bit of an error in his play. In the first two games, Rhett was going literally straight Stefano style. He was going for mass creep spread, mass drones, getting these infestors up, and then going for the Broodlords. Instead of the spine crawlers, Rhett says, well, hey, if you open Stargate, you probably don't have any sort of detection, so I'm going to push with Ling Infestor really quickly. And he ended up sacrificing this fourth.
He did, wow, and he actually lost that there, and now PartinG is just about on even keel with him because PartinG has very successfully secured that third. We saw his force fields really do work in defending from that heavy Zergling mass amount of units, and now Rhett has just wrapped up his hive, which means that we are one step closer to seeing that late game composition that he so very much wants to transition. Now in this game, he really just stuck with Lings and Infestors to secure his walk straight into Broodlords.
And now it looks like Rhett is taking tons of bases with these leftover minerals, but this looks like a good position, but it's kind of an illusion. The money that should have been spent on spine crawlers has been spent on Zerglings and expansions. And the question is, does Rhett actually have enough defense left over to deal with this huge push? I mean, right now we're seeing some very nice Phoenix control. We're seeing 11 Corruptors in production, the Greater Spire plopping out, but the Broodlord Infestor army can't actually defend this wide spread of hatches without a lot of spines, and the money just isn't quite there yet.
Right. And now we see PartinG adding on an additional Stargate. We also see him continuing his ground upgrades as he wraps up Psystorm as well. So we're going to see a pretty nasty push out of PartinG because there's so many Zerglings on the field. He can storm those right out of existence.
Looks like Fleet Beacon coming up, so it's time for the Mothership.
Oh, yeah, that Mama Ship.
Mama Ship coming right on in. In the unit station, we see 17 Corruptors. Always a good number of Corruptors to have. And Rhett really sort of saying to himself, yeesh, I really should have gotten quite a few more spine crawlers up. He's going to need to increase that drone count. He's at 85, still needs to continue to cause that decline. And what is he going to do with these Zerglings? He's going to try for counters, but it looks like he ran right into an army as distraction, a little bit all over the place.
Yeah, and those Lings just really did not get the bang for the buck that they could have. He's forced to retreat out into this actually currently moderately exposed center base.
Yeah, and I mean, where are the 10 spine crawlers here to defend this push? He just hasn't had the money for them. He spent too many on Zerglings. There's the spines going up. Where's the Spore? Rhett losing his expansion. Almost nothing he can do about it. Sure, he might send these Zerglings here to defend, but that's the time for PartinG to push.
Right, and PartinG is very much going to take advantage of that window of opportunity. He has the knowledge. He knows where the Zerglings are, and he knows that this is his time to strike. We do see a fungal land, also followed up by the feedbacks. Very nice play from PartinG. Will he be able to land additional ones before any of those will go down? down. Oh, man, and just as the Broodlords are popping, now the Lings still aren't over there, so PartinG is in a relatively comfortable position, but those Broodlords may have morphed just in time.
There's 12 Corruptors on the map, but they're nowhere to be found. Very nice storms going down. Very cool. Gives a nice reaction from the crowd. Where are they? Oh, sitting by the naturals. Oh, no. Rhett will hopefully see when he injects the next round of Larva there, but I think Rhett doesn't quite realize that he has pretty much everything he needs to defend this push.
Right, and actually, if he doesn't get those units up there pretty much immediately, he can lose these very valuable Broodlords, and if he does that, PartinG's in a great position because, and now for the first time in the game, I believe that PartinG has just taken the supply lead. He comes in with additional Stalkers as well, blinking down right under those Broodlords, picked off the only Broodlords that currently make up Rhett's army aside from that lone above the base, and now PartinG is going to be pushing through, and still the Corruptors are down at the natural.
I mean, the amount of damage he's done, 45 kills, 31 kills, 53 kills on this Colossus. I think Rhett has once again discovered a little bit of a hole in his late game play.
Man, those all-star Colossi just really coming through. It's unfortunate that all of those Corruptors were down at the natural. I mean,
there he notices them a little bit too late. Still going to try to morph in more Broodlords. Going to see if he can try to pull a comeback on 3 bases, but it looks like PartinG, going to do the Jukaroo. Will go for that 4th.
Man, there weren't even very many Stalkers down there either if those Corruptors had been there a little bit sooner, but now PartinG is not short on Stalkers at all as he pushes up into Rhett's 4th base, and Rhett just doesn't really have anything that can deal with this ground army. He has a couple Broodlords out on the field, totaling up to 6, but against 2 Archons and 22 Stalkers, you're going to have a rough time fighting those off.
Yeah, the Zealot's doing a lot of damage at that 3rd base, and here the Corruptor army from Liquid Red realizing they could have stepped in and picked these all off. Ooh! Oh, no. One falls. Will he get 2? He does get 2, and the 3rd one.
Oh, man, going for that hat trick. Yes, a very nice cleanup from Rhett. Gets in for the Colossi hat trick. Now, he has lost 2 bases there, but Rhett has just about a fearsome enough army that he can hold off PartinG long enough to secure additional bases. Now, PartinG, meanwhile, while he's been attacking and staying aggressive, he also expanded to a 4th and a 5th of his own. So if Rhett does not capitalize and re-expand immediately, he's going to have trouble moving into this this next transition in the game.
Once again, we see that the lack of spine crawlers are coming back to bite Rhett. These Zerglings are good in counterattacks, they're good in small numbers, but they are not good when there's a Colossus just ripping things apart. In the main base, not that many minerals left. At this backside, we do see that there's some Zealots, 5. Can these Zerglings take them down? It's always kind of hard to tell. It actually looks like Rhett will be trying to target fire this one Nexus down. Will he get it? Will he get it? Looks like there's some counterattacks happening, but I'm not taking my eyes off this for a second. He gets it.
Wow, with only 3 Zerglings remaining, he does finish it off. But PartinG is now moving up into the natural with his mass of Blink Stalkers, able to get up into the main as well. And we could very well see the Greater Spire go down as he focus fires up. Oh, man, picked off a very crucial tech structure for Rhett. How is he going to reach his late game composition if he does not have the tech required?
And the Infestor gets taken down. Another Spire trying to get rebuilt, but I think all it's going to really do is block the pool.
Or it's just going to also die.
And he recalls it out.
Man, nice play from PartinG. Gets in there, snaps off the very crucial tech that Rhett needs, and gets out of there. Rhett wasn't even thinking about that, right? How often do you build additional backup tech?
I mean, basically never. And now PartinG is able to take this out, and thanks to the fact that he actually almost has enough for another recall. He can just suicide out Blink Stalkers knowing that he can easily recall all of them, and Rhett is essentially being stuck on a minimum amount of bases.
I really like that play with the mothership. Like that, is an excellent
he whiffs
dodges
2 big
the fungal.
Ones. It's long distance broodlinging. And it looks like Rhett's going to bring the fight to the front base. And where are the Zerglings? Is he actually reinforcing with them? It looks like he's adding on Overseers as he knows a mothership exists.
And Rhett now is between a rock and a hard place, or between a win and a loss, you could say. Now, PartinG has a mothership out here, and if Rhett doesn't get something that can deal with that, like he doesn't have anything that can attack area, I guess, except for his infested Terrans. We don't see really any Corruptor count in Rhett's army. He has like 5 or 6, and those Stalkers can take those down very quickly.
Finding the weak spot where most of them were clustered far away from the nice, humble home of those fungal growths. Oh my gosh, PartinG has gotten the lead and continue to exploit it. Easily going to be able to swat away this attack. The Broodlords are falling more and more rapidly. an insultatory vortex just to let him know he could.
I think it was on like 3 Corruptors or something, or 2 Corruptors. I guess we'll see when it comes out of there.
There's a good game.
Man, Rhett forced the tap out. So like you mentioned, not having those spine crawlers really made PartinG's pushes just that much more effective.
Yeah, it looks like Liquid Rhett, now we are coming up on 9 p.m. Liquid Rhett has ended his challenge at 2-2, having some nice wins against PartinG with that mid game, a nice win against Naniwa where he did get to that late game, but it was that first and fourth game, the long ones on Daybreak that I think are going to be the big learning lessons for Rhett.
Right, and I think that as he watches those replays, he's very much going to see that if he just had a little bit more static defense so that he could have gotten up his workers, particularly actually, or excuse me, his army. Now, particularly in that fourth game, I think that as he watches that, realizing that all of those Corruptors were sitting there not really doing anything is going to hurt a lot. He could have killed those Colossi before we saw them rack up 150 kills.
Yeah, and I mean, like, even that big push with the Ling stuff at the start, the Ling Infester push at the third, ended up being a huge blow to Rhett's mid game. He spent all this resources, tried to push, and realized, ooh, I actually can't do any damage here, pulling back for the retreat.
And he just built a lot of Zerglings that ultimately didn't do anything for him. And wasting all of that larva that is just going to be so crucial to him anyway. It could have been drones. It could have been something that was working him more towards that late game composition that he wanted. But he went out on a limb. He tried doing the Zergling Infester combo, and it just didn't work out.
So what we're going to be doing now is stepping away for a brief moment before we set up with an interview with Liquid Rhett to ask him how the challenge went for him, the things he learned along the way, and of course how he's going to be taking it to his tournament coming up next week. I'm Day 9.
And I'm Rob Simpson. Stay tuned for more Red Bull LAN in Orlando. When we come back, we're going to have Rhett